Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. And I am here in Cooperstown, New York, at the Red Carpet Inn and Suites. And this place has been really fantastic, and their hospitality is top of the charts. I've done a broadcast on Saturday for the Sports Exchange, and what a great time we had doing that. So, with that said, folks, we're glad that you're able to join us tonight. Tonight's show is actually be called the Baseball Hall of Fame with the Michigan connections, and obviously appropriate for Michigan connections. And my co-host tonight here, but before I introduce them, I want to make sure that everybody knows to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel by going to youtube.com and hit South Florida Tribune, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, or follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, well, my crew tonight is simple. The three amigos, okay? It's as far as I'm going to go as far as Mexican, because I don't know any more about it anyways. So George Eichhorn, welcome back.
Good to be here, Scott, from Detroit, Michigan.
And there you are from Detroit, Michigan. I get around a little bit. It only took me 23 hours nonstop to get here from Deerfield Beach, Florida, all the way to baseball heaven. And Madman Mancini, long time no talk. After all, we only did something on Saturday with Bruce Kessinger. Had a lot of fun and enjoyed some of the projects that we're involved in. So,
yeah,
Mark, welcome back.
So definitely blessed to be a part of this with you two each and every Monday. A little madness with Mancini. Definitely, my friends, man. I love it. And your lovely wife now joining in the background there is great, too.
Well, she does a good job. Well, Candy Emily and I stayed over at the Hall of Fame from start to finish. We went there at 9 o'clock, at 7, and an incredible video with a youngster who traveled with his dad from Toronto, Canada. And we started our thing off exactly with it. And I'll tell you, I'm going to release that probably tomorrow, and he'll be on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. So what a great start to Cooperstown. I did something in Oneonta on Saturday about the ballpark where the Detroit Tigers used to go out there, and it was really neat to be able to talk about it. And we have some good people in the chat room. Detroit City TV is giving us a thumbs up. And hello, Tina Lewis. My hometown is Detroit, Michigan. Tina, glad to have you on tonight's show. So if you could please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got a lot of great shows on this platform. But Tina Lewis, we're so thrilled to have you tonight. God bless. Okay. So with that said, and everybody that goes ahead and chimes in on the chat room, I will definitely mention you. Mark my word, I will do it, because without you folks, we'd be talking to ourselves. I like to talk to as many people that are not ourselves. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about what we saw today over at Cooperstown. Now, the most unique piece of history was a video of Armando Galaraga's botch perfect game. They had a video. Then they had an exhibit with the first base and a placard going over what happened there. So, you know what, Armando Galaraga, nobody's forgetting you up here in Cooperstown. Even though you didn't get in as a perfect game, they certainly acknowledge the botch near perfect game is a piece of baseball history, albeit for the right or wrong reasons. But for whatever it's worth, they did begin to get instant replay going and the technology going, and all it takes is something like that to go out there and get things going. I remember when Calvin Johnson had the catch that wasn't the catch, right? And all of a sudden that got the wheels turning. It seems like every time a Detroit team is involved, rule changes occur, but we'll focus on point. The only time they've ever gotten the right end of it was when the botch coin toss, and I was at that Thanksgiving game with the Lions and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sorry, Mark, but you didn't work out there, and the Lions won in overtime. But nevertheless, the Steelers did practice there when they had their Super Bowl in Detroit. But back on point with Armando Galaraga, George. Are you really actually happy that he gets some sort of acknowledgement in Cooperstown?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, if those the people that forget, the instant replay wasn't around back then. Jim Joyce was the umpire at first base, and Jim Joyce happened to be one of the highest rated baseball umpires in the major leagues at the time. He has since passed away. He admitted the mistake afterwards. He felt horrible. I think he even cried. There were tears flowing from him the next day as the Tigers sent Galaraga out with the lineup card. The next day was a day game, and Jim Joyce had the plate because, as you know, the umpire rotates from first base to home plate typically in the major leagues. So when they exchanged the lineup cards, they had close-up pictures of Galaraga and Joyce, and obviously Jim was very upset. He was upset the night it happened, too. He actually went to the Tigers clubhouse and apologized, and it was a sad situation. Armando, what a great man. What a great personality. He didn't throw a hissy fit. He just smiled, this unbelievable smile. I remember when he gave to the crowd and to the umpire when he saw that call that was missed. And yeah, you're right, Scott. I mean, he deserved his place in history. He deserved his spot in Cooperstown. For one, I'm glad that they are remembering that, and you saw a little bit of that history today, like you said.
Yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts about Armando Galaraga?
Yeah, you can see a lot of baseball games, and it's a travesty. I've been blessed enough to see a perfect game, but I mean, if it's going to end like that, where you're denied the perfect game, and you know darn well that instant replay would reverse that thing. Boy, that's just a claw that you just can't get out of your system. I mean, it just gnaws at you day in, and that's the sad thing about it. But, now that they put the instant replay in this thing, now we can understand what this thing is all about. And we've seen a lot of plays, over the weekends and stuff like that, where instant replay has been beneficial in overturning calls that need to be overturned.
Yeah, let me add one thing to it because we have a lot of ground to cover tonight. And Major League Baseball really should go ahead and overturn it, even a little bit later on after the fact, because you know what? They acknowledge a mistake was made. All right, the only thing missing is he won't get the old hugs from his teammates, but so what? You're wrong. There's no reason why you can't go ahead and change it and turn it into a perfect game. I really think they should. Whether they do or not remains to be seen. But you know what, MLB, my advice to you is go ahead and don't be afraid to change history, especially when you know it was badly botched. Because as I saw what I saw in the videos today, I mean, he was clearly out. He really was. It wasn't a close call where, it could go either way. This was as obvious as it could have been. So MLB, please go ahead and change it and give the guy his due his perfect game, even though the Hall did the right thing by at least acknowledging that it was a piece of history, albeit probably for all the wrong reasons. All right, with that said, we'll go on to a brief one here. Had a chance to see Mark Fidrich on the magazine cover. Glad that Cooperstown remembers the bird, as we did George going back in the day in 1976 when Mark Fidrich was filling up Tiger Stadium. So, yes, there is a Mark Fidrich reference in Cooperstown.
I'm very glad to hear that, Scott, as well. Mark Fidrich just lit up Detroit and lit up the country and lit up Michigan, of course, in 1976 with that fantastic season, 19 victories. He didn't win the Cy Young, but he did win, of course, American League Rookie of the Year, and he pitched in the All-Star game. It was tremendous. The Tigers, would never admit it, but they obviously wanted to have him pitch as much at home as they could because they had some tremendous crowds, almost 40 to 50,000 every time he pitched at home. And the bird is the word. And he talked to the baseball, and he patted the mound, and he just was such a gregarious character. He was so much fun to watch and to pitch, and taking on these great teams like the Yankees and the White Sox and the Angels and whoever else the Tigers played. I mean, the bird was the word. And I know that the Tigers really enjoyed him as a pitcher. And again, I'm glad to hear that the Hall of Fame has recognized him and some of his antics. I mean, they made songs about him. And of course, Ernie Harwell loved him too. Our dear friend Ernie, who got the chance to call the play-by-play for Mark on radio, as did George Kell on television. So, Fidrich was great. And I remember him meeting President Ford before the game. You might remember, guys, that the All-Star game was hosted by Philadelphia because that was the nation's bicentennial, 1976. And they got all three All-Star games that year, baseball, basketball, and hockey. And Gerald Ford supposedly went up to Fidrich. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I think it is. And Ford and Fidrich said to him, "And who might you be, sir?" To Jerry Ford, the president. "And who might you be?"
That's funny. I should point out in the chat room, Detroit City TV says human error is what is great about sports. Probably it is, but you know what? And again, it's happened for a lot of years, but there's two sides to it. I think that Detroit City TV makes a valid point. Still, though, in my opinion, I think it needs to be changed. And they also make a point about the great days of baseball. Detroit City TV, get out here. You're going to find out a lot of great days of baseball, because what we're noticing, especially what I've noticed here, is there's one thing to be able to go ahead and what MLB does, but then when you look at the historical perspective of baseball, bringing in people in here, I said I wouldn't really mention this before, but it's hard for me to not acknowledge the fact that, say what you want about Pete Rose, but you know what? They got a lot of his stuff in here. The only thing missing is the plaque. Don Mattingly, I've said it before, deserves being here. No shortage of mentions there. Ichiro Suzuki, there's a little something in there about what he's accomplished, although we know he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and the list goes on and on. So history, yes. A lot of guys who aren't supposed to be in are in. They have steroid talk there as well. So there's a lot of great historical perspectives in here, regardless of some of the individuals that may or may never get on. So with that said, Mancini, give us your take about Mark Fidrich.
Oh, George laid it down perfect. I mean, 19-9 that year. And he just captivated baseball. We did that thing a month or so ago talking about, Detroit, icons in baseball. And I had Fidrich in there because I thought, it was at a time when, the Tigers needed something like that.
Yeah.
Small market, everybody looks at the Yankees and, the Mets and Dodgers and some of these big market teams, but having a small market team and bringing a guy like that in, I believe he was originally from Massachusetts. His death was just alarming in more ways than one. I mean, it was sad when he died, but gosh, what a pitcher for that year. I don't know if he burned out his arm, but if he was in this era, he probably would have lasted, because these pitchers today go 3-4 innings before they have a bullpen by committee. But Mark Fidrich was amazing, and I don't know if we'll ever see another guy like him that would come out there and pat the ball, talk to the ball, and take pictures with Big Bird.
Yeah, well, Mark Fidrich did throw a lot of complete games back in the day when they're more common. Nowadays, you're right, Mark. The average pitcher is going about between 4 and 6 innings, and they're certainly caught a little bit more. Of course, there's a bigger investment in him as well. So, but nevertheless, it was really refreshing to see something with Mark Fidrich. All right, well, got to talk about Miguel Cabrera. There's plenty on him, including inside a Tigers locker with Justin Verlander. Yes, Verlander still has a jersey in that locker. And there's also a Triple Crown exhibit with Miguel Cabrera and Mike Trout. So, and of course, Lou Whittaker is not listed on the retired numbers list because it simply happened on Saturday. But, think about it. The Tiger fans haven't forgotten about Justin Verlander and, of course, Miguel Cabrera. It was neat to see what they put together, as it was for all the teams that we had a chance, but we're just focusing on the Michigan part of the whole thing now. So, George, Miguel Cabrera hadn't been inducted in the Hall of Fame, but boy, there's plenty of mention here about him.
Oh yeah, he's had his moments. Obviously, recently the 500th home run, the 3,000th base hit, and even though he's struggling physically right now on the Tigers roster, Miguel obviously has a home waiting for him, no question about it. He'll be going into that Hall of Fame when he is eligible. I would imagine on the first vote, probably first ballot when he's eligible. I'm glad to hear about Verlander. Obviously, what a great career he's had so far, and he continues to go on, leading the major leagues in victories, leading the major leagues in ERA as a starter. It's unbelievable how he's the comeback player, obviously from Tommy John surgery. Again, a great part of Detroit's history, as you guys know, the no-hitters, 2 World Series appearances in Detroit, and all-star games and all that great stuff. And the pitcher's Triple Crown, of course. That Verlander won, the pitching Triple Crown. And, of course, Cabrera, unbelievable. First one since what, Carl Yastrzemski in 1967 to win the batting Triple Crown. And Detroit, you're right, Scott. They've had their share of good, solid, excellent ball players that deserve the Hall of Fame. And I'm glad you mentioned the one that we hope still gets in there soon is number 1, Lou Whittaker, who finally had his number retired, as you guys know, last Saturday, a few days ago at Comerica Park.
Now, Mark, I don't view Detroit as a small market. There are a lot of other they've been willing to spend money and develop. I know they've been down for a while and they come across as being a smaller market, but you know what? No, I'm not going to buy the theory. Detroit can go out there and put 30 to 40,000 people blindfolded with the right situation, especially if they're winning. They put in Georgia in the past, 2 million fans?
3 million, Scott.
Yeah, so if that's a small market. Tell me Mark, what a small market is, but I don't view it that way. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, the thing is when you look at, and it's always digesting all the 4 sports, but more or less you really see it come to the forefront in baseball and in basketball, because it seems like the sports writers or the media focuses on LA, New York, and Chicago, and they're fixated on that. So everybody else gets lumped in. Now, growing up, we didn't think of small markets and big markets as much as we do now, because now I think the haves and the have-nots is so separated in baseball that, if you can't spend the big money like they do in those 3 cities,
right,
then you're almost viewed as a small market. Now, San Diego's a small market. Don't tell me how they got the money, but, maybe they hit the lottery down there, but their payroll is big. But to keep that payroll, you can only keep that going for so long, whereas the big markets can simply break these small market cities. And I think when you look at baseball, I'm sure you both will agree on it, that the small markets are almost the minor leagues to the big markets, where they can come in and raid these guys. And we've seen it in case in point in a lot of them. Max Scherzer was in your backyard, Justin Verlander. And imagine if they still had those 2 guys compared to, in other cities with talents that have been gone and picked apart by these big markets.
So, Mark, I guess my perception, I'm going to ask you this, not so much with you, George, okay? Here's the thing. If an owner has deep pockets, then all of a sudden the appearance comes across in a way that they are a big market. The San Diego owner could have an awful lot of money in his pocket. They have a brand new stadium, which is drawing incredible revenues. And we all know, George, from our own experience, Mike Gillich was not afraid to spend any money either. He obviously spent a lot of money in the National Hockey League. And as a result, the Red Wings went out there and won 4 championships to begin with. So, and they were able to do 3 when they could spend, and then they were able to do 1 in the salary cap era. So Mike Gillich had a lot of deep pockets, and if the owner has deep pockets, maybe there could be some sort of a correlation between them for a while. Now, again, Mark, you are right. Sustainability is another story, and ultimately teams, when they get to that final point where you can go ahead and spend a lot of money. But look at the Florida Marlins at the time. Wayne Huizinga spent a lot of money and bought himself. And they sold out there. They ended up developing their own, and then they couldn't hold on to Miguel Cabrera and Dontrell Willis. So, again, it depends on, I think, the owner's deep pockets. We'll let everybody out in the chat room there, they can focus on that. But it's good that we were able to bring that up. But nevertheless, Mark, staying on Cabrera and Verlander, think about it. The Tigers locker, I don't think there's too many guys that are still worthy that the Tigers still appreciate Verlander in there, and the Baseball Hall of Fame does. And, of course, Miguel Cabrera. Now the only thing will be, when the time comes that Justin Verlander does get in here, is he going to wear a Astros cap, Tigers cap, or is he going to go without an insignia anyway? We'll find out.
Yeah, and it's
sad,
of
those.
Right.
I think it'll be Detroit.
Yeah. And when you're talking about guys like Verlander and Scherzer and Cabrera, I mean, these are icons in that city. And even though, 2 of the 3 have moved on, you kind of wish, if they held on to them, how many potential titles they'd have right about now. I know the American League is wide open with, it's so, tough with all these teams competing to get in there, the added wild card, but can you imagine a rotation with Verlander and Scherzer, a 1-2 punch like they got in New York? That would be just simply amazing. And I think the Tigers would have run away with it for, more years than one.
I
Well,
agree. I think they gave up too soon. But I think the purse strings were tightening really hard around Mike Ilitch and his family. I think that's the reason why they finally decided they had to go in a different direction. I don't think he could sustain that much longer. He built that stadium. Yeah, he got help from the city and the state, but he put a lot of extra money, I found out. He borrowed a lot of money from Japanese banks to build Comerica Park. And Scott, all those special statues he put in there and all those tiger engravings and all those extra things he put in there, that cost a lot of money. I'm not making an excuse for Mike Ilitch, but I think the time had run out for him and Dombrowski to get a championship here, and that's kind of what happened. And it's unfortunate, like you said, Mark, they probably could have won had they hung on a little bit longer, but for financial reasons, I guess he could.
well, Nick's there. All right. So now that we've talked about that, I had my first opportunity. I've been to the hall now 3 times. And for me, one of the most intriguing things about it, and we'll just take a little time because we have a lot more ground to cover, is I had a chance to see an exhibit with the Ford Frick Award. Ernie Harwell, obviously, is on there for the Tigers. And then the writers wing, Tom Gage and Joe Falls. And Mark, I will give one Pittsburgh reference here to this, that Bob Prince was also there as well. We won't get any more details, but it was good that he was on there. But the focus is on Ernie Harwell. And more importantly, they also had a trivia question about Ernie Harwell, 40 years for broadcasting with the Tigers in one of the movies that they had there as well. So, for a lot, and I didn't know where this was until it was on a different part of the building, where you have the main plaques, and then all of a sudden you have a separate wing for these guys. I'll tell you what, you talk about the Mike men, we talk about them, and of course, the writers, they get a lot of, they don't get the recognition. But you know what, George, Ernie Harwell was an uncle to me, and he was a very close family member, and you saw how close we were. And Tom Gage and Joe Falls are 2 personal friends. Hopefully, maybe one of these days, Lynn Henning will get there, but you never know. But Falls and Gage to me mean everything. Ernie Harwell, you talk about the Triple Crown heavyweights of media, at least those 3 guys are in the one is the Ford Frick Award and the writer's wing. So, Mark, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'll tell you, Ernie Harwell, we just lost a legend out here in Los Angeles and Vin Scully. But, man, when you think of some of the great guys, and Ernie Harwell is unbelievable. And what I want to know, since you've been walking around that Hall of Fame there in Cooperstown, is there anything with Tom Selleck with a hat and Magnum PI?
Actually, I never noticed anything. That may be one of the few things I did. No, but it's a fair question.
Yeah.
No, it's a fair. I didn't see it. I saw just about a lot of things. But the thing you have to understand, Mark, is they change things around a lot too. Many years ago, I saw a little display about Thurman Munson. Didn't see it here this time.
Wow.
And yeah, many years ago when I was there, like 25 years. Now, I should point out, I'm glad you brought this up too, Mark. Ernie Harwell got the Ford Frick Award in 1981, and Vin Scully got it in 1982. There's a little piece of trivia. Oh yeah, no, Ernie came first. Vin came.
Now, what about the Negro Leagues? Has that been?
There's a lot of talk about the Negro Leagues in the Hall of Fame as well, and they've got a nice statue of Buck O'Neill. I didn't do a video on him because obviously I was focusing on a lot of the main ones, but I can tell you right now, I have pictures on standing next to Buck O'Neill as well. In fact, they have his legacy chair there that they took out of Kauffman Stadium and actually put it out so people could see. So, of course, he just got inducted as well. So, again, Mark, I could sit here and spend 2 hours talking about what I saw being there for 10 hours. And, it would, but you still have to see it. But, the Negro Leagues are prominently mentioned. And, what was interesting is as I was looking through the wall of plaques, as the managers and the umpires are incorporated with a lot of the players. So they're all integrated is what they are, which is neat. So
unbelievable. And the logos probably from all the since the inception of baseball and the Red Legs and the logos and everything.
Oh, yeah, Mark, you got to get – all I can tell you, Madman, you got to get out here, buddy. That's all I'm going to say. So,
but
George,
Ernie Harwell obviously is a special place in everybody's heart in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
I am disappointed that they have not recognized Ty Tyson, the original Tigers announcer. Harry Heilman was a great broadcaster, and of course George Kell. I'm disappointed that the 3 of those have not entered the Hall of Fame as in the broadcast wing. And then there is one more writer, Scott. You probably don't remember him because he was way back in the day. H.G. Selsinger of the Detroit News. He also is part of the Spink Award, along with Joe Falls and Tom Gage. And the one that deserved that never got in was Watson Spolstra, Detroit News, longtime baseball writer, covered the team in '68 and became the legend because he started the baseball chapel, the prayer service on Sunday mornings for the players and the umpires and the team officials to go and pray before the game on Sunday. Waddy Spolstra started the baseball chapel. Of course, Ernie Harwell was a big part of that too. So there are some people missing in the broadcast and the writer's wing. You mentioned a good one, Scott. Lynn Henning of the Detroit News, who's still writing in a freelance position for the Detroit News. But sure enough, Lynn definitely deserves the Hall of Fame and the Spink Award. But we're so happy for, of course, Harwell and Gage and Falls.
Well, I got news for you. The last time I was at the Hall of Fame, I didn't have a digital camera, couldn't take photos, but I did take photos of the gallery on both of them. So the guy you mentioned, I'll probably start looking for him. So, but I'll have you text me later on so I can get it.
How about some of the Tigers that, even the players that are well deserving that aren't in the Hall of Fame?
Well, we'll get to that in a moment, Mark. Okay. So, George, hold on to that thought. I do want to mention a couple of other things, but we will address that. Okay. That's a very important topic. I did have a chance to spend time looking at the tycobb exhibit. He's prominently displayed around there as well. I did some stuff with the Hank Aaron exhibit, not a Tiger guy, but we were able to do. And I have a lot of other stuff that I'll get into at a later date. So the tycobb exhibit was impressive. Now, I want to go over some of the prominent plaques that I did see. Okay, George, one of which is Harry Heilman. He does have a plaque there. Charlie Gehringer, Hank Greenberg, George Cal, alkaline. Jack Morris is in there. Alan Trammell, Jim Bunning, and Sparky Anderson went in as a Reds cap. So those are the ones that stood out to me the most. I'm not going to get into everything, but that's not a bad group there. So whether Heilman is deserving of another place in the hall is one thing, but at least he's got a plaque there, so it's not like he's out of sight, out of mind. So, all right, with that said, we don't even have to comment. I'm just mentioning these there. We are going to talk about what Mark was talking about now, about guys that should be in. I'll tell you what, Mickey Loach, to me, top of the list. Lou Whittaker is another guy that should be in there. I would start with those two. You guys are free to add if you want to.
Well, how about Norm? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
How about Norm Cash?
Yeah, Norm Cash and Bill Freehan can easily get there. I thought that Bill Freehan was comparable to Johnny Bench, and yeah, Norm Cash should be in there also. So
yep.
I would only go with two of them, and my two would be Bill Freehan and Mickey Lolich, and Whittaker. I'm sorry, three. It's going to be a while still for all three of those. They have these special committees, these era committees that now look at the players that played in certain eras, such as the 50s, before that, the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever era it is. So there is hope still, but it's not easy because you're competing against so many other players that feel, just as we are sitting here talking Michigan, that their teams deserve their admittance to the hall as well. But definitely Lou Whittaker. It was interesting that Trammell said something on Saturday that really shook up the crowd. He said, I have been feeling very uncomfortable the last 4 years. That's how he started his speech to Whittaker on the field. Very uncomfortable, knowing full well that my number was retired, that I entered the Hall of Fame, and my partner did not. And Alan feels very adamant about that. And I think that the Tigers finally did the right thing by retiring Whittaker's number. And yes, putting a little bit of pressure on these guys who sit on this select committee, that they'll think deeper about Whittaker. And that was a sham. That was a sham that he got less than 5% of the vote and fell off the ballot after one time. That's the most ridiculous thing. And that's the most hideous disrespect for him by the baseball writers. I don't give a darn whether they couldn't get along with him or get a good interview from him. That was a shame what those writers did. And I know all of them, a lot of them personally, and they have to look themselves in the face for what they did to Lou Whittaker.
Go ahead, man.
Well, what about another guy? Because he was prominent in two cities. was Kirk Gibson. Kirk Gibson would be another one in this thing. I mean, he was instrumental in, with the Tigers running, when they hit it, and then again with the Dodgers. So, I mean, that 35-5 start by the Tigers was unbelievable that year. And I mean, I don't think you'll ever see something like that. I witnessed one of those games out here, but I don't think you'll ever see that duplicated where a team gets out that fast.
Yeah, I'm not sure Gibson I could make a case for him. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad you brought him up too, Madman. Number one, he has a nice photo with him clenching his fist going there, and his home runs, because they have videos where with some of the great moments, and he had his home run against the Padres, and he also had that memorable call with the Dodgers. So as much as I would love to see Gibson in there, it would be hard to do that. And a few other ones when you talk about nationally that should be in there. Fred McGriff, why he's in there, goes beyond my wildest imagine. If anybody should be in there, it's definitely Fred McGriff. I don't know why he's not in there. He didn't hit the 500 home run mark, but by the same token, he did everything clean, very clean. And again, we could talk about a lot of the major omissions out there. Fred McGriff should easily be in, and of course, some of the notable Tiger omissions that we just talked about. I think Mickey Lowell should get in there. When they had a display where him and Steve Carlton were two of the better left-handers in their era, and why one got in and why one isn't is anybody's guess. So I want to get to a couple more topics before we call it a night. There was a miniature Tiger Stadium out there. So Tiger Stadium is not forgotten up in Cooperstown for sure. And of course, the Tigers' victory, they opened up Comerica Park with a 5-2 win over Seattle. The ball from that game is in there. George, were you at that opening day game against Seattle?
Yes, Scott, I was privileged as you were to be in the closing game at Tiger Stadium. What a memorable night. Unbelievable. And then, yes, I was there. Terrible weather conditions. It snowed the morning of that opener in Comerica Park. The temperatures were in the 30s, but there was no way that John McHale and Randy Smith and the Tigers were going to postpone that game, because that was the game one at Comerica Park. And what a memorable game. But boy, we froze our butt off, and the fans especially. But yeah, I mean, I'm so happy that you mentioned there's a salute, because when you look back at the great stadiums of all time, and there have been so many of them, a Tiger Stadium has a great place in my heart. What a tremendous place. Those green seats, you remember the original was all green when you walked in there and saw that beautiful big stadium with green seats and the green paint on the outfield walls. And then, of course, Mr. Campbell decided to renovate, and he painted everything blue, blue seats and blue paint everywhere, which didn't go over as well as he might have thought, but it was still obviously it needed to be done. They had to put new seats in and restructure the place. Great stadiums. Both of them are. Comerica Park's a good ballpark and a nice ballpark.
Well, they had a stadium section there. I should point out, since I'm going off on a lot of different things, they had some pretty good stuff on Lou Gehrig. Babe Ruth has his own exhibit. Hank Aaron has it, as well as a nice little section where you had Roberto Clemente, Lou Gehrig, and you also had Jackie Robinson. And actually, that's something that'll be going up on the YouTube channel there as well. So that was pretty neat to be able to walk into the Hall of Fame and see that. Then I said, there's no way we weren't going to do some on that. So for all you folks that are subscribing to our channel, great. For those that haven't yet, please do so. I'll get to all that in a moment. But in fact, I'll actually get to it now. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mark so that he can get his thought out. Folks, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel. So you go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, hit the subscribe button. It's pretty easy. Or you can visit www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Madman, what's on your mind?
Well, and not only that, if you're going to look at the Hall of Fame, I mean, I would imagine something's got to be in there with Reggie Jackson hitting that facade during the All-Star game. There's got to be something where they probably pulled that off and put it in the Hall of Fame, because You always remember Reggie Jackson in that shot at Tiger Stadium.
Oh yeah, well, you mentioned it. There was a video on that too. So, and there are an awful lot of Hall of Famers that were pulled out of that 71 game. Ralph Williams chimes in. Hello, guys. Great show as always. Thank you very much for tuning in, Ralph. Very much appreciated. So, but yeah, no, they did mention that there again, Mark. I could sit here and spend hours and hours, and if I had a photo gallery, it would go from here, from Deerfield Beach to Alaska with photos and yeah, you can pull out. And I still have another 3 more days in this area, and where Doubleday Field is the place we're going to hit the souvenir shops. Hopefully not spend too much money, but there'll be a few things that'll help my home in Deerfield Beach a little bit. So yeah.
Now let me ask you, if I can ask you, like the souvenir shop, what is it? Is it all Cooperstown stuff? Is it like old hats of the different teams back then? What would that be?
Well, you know what? They've got one in the museum. We didn't go in there because we had a feeling the cost might be a little bit higher inside there. So there's a bunch of Cooperstown things. But now that you mentioned it, there's a place what I was at many years ago called Mickey's Place. There's another one that they talk about, Shoeless Joe Jackson. And then there's another one they also talk about, Yastrzemski's Place. And again, those are just a few of the ones that stand up. I'm going to probably go into all of them. I don't know if I'm going to spend a lot of money because what I have going for me this time is I've got more videos, which are going to be reminiscent of this experience. I didn't have a first-class phone like I did many years ago, so those will be worth a lot in their own right just to be able to do these things. But, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that just came into my mind, guys, and Scott, you probably remember this. Denny McLain peddling his autographs. Denny McLain, the last 30-game winner in Major League Baseball, is not doing well. Let's just put it that way. Health-wise and financially, I don't think he's doing well. And he's been known to get his own table and rent his own space. And during the Hall of Fame weekend, he will come up there and he will sign things and make a buck or two on anything he can. And I'm not begrudging the guy because he's not the only one. There's ex-baseball players doing this. But if your listeners and viewers have never noticed this does happen at the Hall of Fame, where the players, even some like McLean that aren't even in, will come up there and get some space and sign autographs to make some money.
Well, say what you want about Pete Rose. He does it too. He's one of the guys that is heavy, where he'll try to bring his autograph signing on Main Street is what he'll do. And you know what? Again, as I mentioned to you before, the guy doesn't have a plaque there, but he's got a presence there. So if you can separate plaque versus presence, well, yeah, he has autograph signings during the Hall of Fame week. And in fact, one of my good friends, Bob Ryan, the Boston Globe had a autograph signing here in Cooperstown as well. So and his book's being sold all here. So again, it's a business for a lot of these old players. And the thing that allures you to Cooperstown is, it is all history is what it is. And to me, you can never have enough of it. I promised my wife, Candy, that on October 31st, when we were at the Field of Dreams site, checking that area out, that I said, now that you've been to the Field of Dreams, I am taking you to Cooperstown, New York. I said, you were able to do that? George, that was in October when I saw you out at the Wings game.
Yes.
And I told her we are going to Cooperstown, and our next major trip on our own will be that. And here we are. So,
awesome.
What's the next one on the horizon?
I don't know. It's TBD, pal. I got news TBD, but I will be going back to the Field of Dreams as well. And I'm glad you brought that up too, Mark, because ironically, the Field of Dreams game is being played, I believe, on Thursday night. And our plan is to go to a sports bar here in Cooperstown and watch it. So when you talk about drawing the connections, I will be watching the Field of Dreams game here in Cooperstown with our last baseball stop. And we've already been scoping out sports bars there and trying to do a lot. And I already got one pinpointed. And yes, on my restaurant tour or / journal, you'll know where I'm at on Thursday night. But Thursday night doesn't have to get here too quick because I got news for you. I have a lot more things I want to get accomplished before we take off for the Big Apple on Friday. So it's pretty neat. Baseball's been great to me for a lot of years. I went to the 1968 World Series when my dad took me there, and I saw Earl Wilson on there. I did. So pitch. Didn't see Lowledge, but again, he's the one guy I really do believe should be in the Hall of Fame above anybody else. Whittaker, yeah, I could see him here, and I could see Freehand, but Lowledge numero uno needs to get in this place. And again, I don't care whether you're not. I also believe in my mind that Don Mattingly belongs here too, and I'm partial toward Don because I work with him in Miami with the Marlins, and I've paid a lot of attention to what we did. I went to a sports bar or a barbecue place out in Oneonta, and let me tell you, Don Mattingly's stuff is over there, and let me tell you, what it takes to get from the short season New York Penn League all the way to the majors is a whole lot further than just a typical low A class or whether it's high A. So Don had to take a couple extra steps, and he still made it there, and he's remembered heavily in this town. So again, I've got a lot of things going up there, folks, so I can't say it often enough. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. I guarantee you, with the versatility, with all the shows that we have coming on, you will not be disappointed. So, no, I think we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of history about being here, and it was such a great thrill to have two Hall of Fame co-hosts in George Eichhorn and Madman Mancini here in the hallowed grounds of Cooperstown, New York. So, any closing thoughts, Madman Mancini, about what we've talked about tonight?
Yeah, I think all of us, including your wife and everybody, we should meet in Chicago next year because I got to get that off the bucket list. Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Detroit.
I could see St. Louis. I'll tell you, I could see St. Louis. I haven't been to the Gateway Arches. I'd love to do it. And you know what? If I can drive 23 hours to get up here, I can go anywhere. It doesn't matter.
I know.
I will. I don't have to worry about the stupid rental car. I don't have to worry about security checks. I have it in my vehicle, so we don't have to worry about that. But no, Mark, it's inevitable. You and I are going to meet at some point anyways. It's not a big deal. The fact that we're doing so many projects together, we have to because we got to do some promo on. So, and Man Mancini, I'm going to make sure that we hustle you up. You got to buy George Eichhorn's book. And George, why don't you give me some closing thoughts? And we're going to lead off with you, appropriate term in Cooperstown. Okay, then you can promote the book, and then we'll call it a night in a few minutes.
Yeah, one name we forgot to mention with Detroit, and that's Jim Leland. And Jim Leland is one of those managerial candidates that obviously has to go through the filtration process with the special committees. But three-time manager of the year, he's 77 years old now. He came back for Lou Whittaker Day last weekend because he was Lou's first manager when he was with the Lakeland Tigers. Jimmy used to be a manager in the Tigers farm system for many years before he went to the White Sox. And I really sincerely believe Jim Leland deserves the Hall of Fame as well. We cannot forget him. And of course, he won the One World's Championship with Florida. But he's another one. You can get a hold of me, George Eichhorn, at SNG Sports 99. I'm also available on LinkedIn and Yahoo, Eichhorn at yahoo.com. And I'm proud to be part of the team here and co-hosting with Scott. I authored a book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, in which the aforementioned Ernie Harwell and Scott Morgenroth are both featured. We have a great book there. It's an easy read, lots of historic photographs with Ernie and with George Kell and Paul Carey, Ray Lane, guys that have done the Tigers. Harry Heilman's in there, as well as Ty Tyson. And it's available for $19.99 from Arcadia Press. And there's a link on the South Florida Tribune website for you to get that book. So, again, happy to be here and hope to be able to see that Hall of Fame, like you said, Scott. Me too. I've never been there. I'd love to be there.
Well, Mark, there's no doubt at some point you got to purchase a book from your co-host so you can learn about our industry. So it's not a matter of if and when. You guys will arrange it out as well. So, but George, I'm glad you brought up Jim Leland. There's no question he's going to get in one day. And one of the more interesting plaques I saw there was Tony Larussa. But even though he came back to manage the White Sox, the Hall of Fame said, we're not going to redo your plaque. Okay, you're going to keep your existing numbers. So don't expect to see that update. So I don't see that. So, Mark, I want you to let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, and ditto to what George was saying about Jimmy Leland. I mean, the only guy that stood up to Barry Bonds and put him in his place, Jim Leland, man, deserves to be in there. XM 203, Sirius 217, Philadelphia's WWDB AM 860, Pittsburgh Pirate Podcast with Tarek Brock. And then I'm in a host of other cities, man. Your city, Detroit, in Miami, Vero Beach starting September 12th, New York, Vegas, Phoenix on Thursdays. I mean, the list goes on, and I'm so blessed. But, man, I don't like to miss the Madness in Motown on Mondays.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, though, Mark, I do enjoy working with you and Bruce Kessinger on the Saturday Sports Talk. Bruce and you and I have a lot of fun. We do a lot of great stuff, and I have a lot of other people as well that I've worked with. I enjoyed my time on the Philadelphia show. Lou Landers is a contributor as well, and Peter Blake. I'm looking forward to working with him and getting back on Philadelphia as well. Hopefully we can do work out something with the Vero Beach guy in September. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that. So I want to give a special thanks to Detroit City TV, Tina Lewis, Ralph Williams for chiming in, because you know what? It's good that a lot of people know that what we're doing is working hard to put together the best possible shows that we can. So I emphasize, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You can see the video as well. And I've mentioned it a few times, no reason to repeat myself a third time. I don't want to sound like a broken record. And if I am, it won't matter because records are outdated, but my voice never will be anyway. So whatever happens to me, at least my people will know what I sound like and look like as a result of YouTube. But, time in Cooperstown's been great, but I still got another 3.5 days to go before I'm ready to get out of here. There'll be a lot of other good work that we have planned out there as well. So, but you guys were fantastic tonight, and there's no better backdrop than Cooperstown, New York, than to bring you, George, Icorn, and Madman Mancini to the show. And I got news for you. There'll be a lot of great videos coming away. And one that I do want to mention that will be on the Sports Exchange is a show I did Saturday outside of here with a guy named Mark Maraday. And, to me, I met him on Twitter, and we ended up staying in touch. He's helpful on social media. And I told Mark, you work with me, I guarantee you'll be on one of my shows. It just so happens that his son was playing ball here in Cooperstown, and he happened to be in the area that I was in. And as a result, we were able to do a great 35-minute show. So a special shout out to Mark Maraday for getting us off to a phenomenal start. So if you guys are looking to realize how you can maximize social media and networking, then this show on the Sports Exchange that was recorded on Saturday is one that I would strongly pay attention to. So meanwhile, once again, great show tonight, George, Mark, as always, great working with you. And I don't know what we're going to do next week. I don't really particularly care, but we're going to continue to find great guests. And otherwise, the three of us have built up enough cachet to be able to do what we need to do. So meanwhile, folks, on behalf of George Icorn and Man Mancini, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan, and we look forward to catching you the next time. Good night, everybody. God bless and be safe out there. Live from the Red Carpet Inn and Suites in Cooperstown, New York, where we're all immortalized anytime you come to these sacred grounds, because it doesn't get any better than that. Good night, everybody.
Night.